TBS EFM.
The entire country is fixated on this big presidential election going on here in Korea and the selection that every citizen has to make now, which candidate to choose. There is actually a major event going on with one of the candidates. The ruling party candidate, Lee Jae-myung, is going to be having a discussion, getting advice. He's been doing this with renowned experts around the world. Today, he is going to be meeting with one of the foremost investors, a legendary figure in the financial world, the co-founder of the Quantum Fund, Jim Rogers, will be meeting Lee Jae-myung today. They will be discussing various things related to the economy and investing in how to make Korea a top 5 economy. And to give you a mini preview of what we can expect millions of people to watch with the Lee Jae-myung conversation, we are pleased to be joined by our special guest today, the co-founder of the Quantum Fund, Jim Rogers. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Shen. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to talk to you again, Mr. Rogers, through various formats, and I hope you've been doing well, and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. We're doing fine. Yeah, I'm in Singapore. It's morning here. We're doing fine so far.
Well, that is good to hear, and good to hear that you are in good health. I know you had a previous interview with our station, TBS EFM News. You have a meeting set to take place, I believe, virtually. You will be teleconferencing with one of the presidential candidates here in the race, Lee Jae-myung of the Democratic Party. Could we just get your thoughts overall on how this came about and what your thoughts are as we get into this meeting with Lee Jae-myung?
Well, I am very, very keen on Korea, as you may know.
Okay.
In fact, Korea, in my view, is soon going to be one of the probably the most interesting and important countries in the world and exciting countries in the world. Once you open the 38th parallel, Korea is going to be very, very, very exciting. And I have told many people that, and his office contacted me and asked if I would be willing to have a discussion about the world, about Korea, and about the future. And I said, well, I cannot endorse any candidates in Korea. I'm not Korean, but I'm certainly willing to discuss with anybody and everybody the situation because I am very, very excited and interested in Korea. And they said, okay, let's do it. So here we are.
So they contacted you first, set this up, and you, as a person who, as we've had our various interviews over the years, somebody who's always had an interest and affinity and I guess a recognition of what you believe to be this vast potential that Korea has, particularly after we have some kind of rapprochement or unification with North Korea, and so the meeting came about. Do you have any sense of what you would like to discuss today? Obviously, we don't want to spill the entire beans here in this interview because we're going to leave it for the big meeting with Lee Jae-myung. But are there any particular topics of interest that you'd like to address to the Korean people?
As far as I'm concerned, I will repeat that if and when you open the 38th parallel, the Korean Peninsula is going to be the most exciting place in the world. You have natural resources in the north. You have lots of capital and management ability in the south. You have many, right on the Chinese border, a country of 80 million people or something on the Chinese border. It will be very exciting for the world and certainly for peace. I mean, South Korea spends a lot of money on defense. North Korea spends a lot of money on defense. If you had other things to spend that money on, oh my gosh, what an exciting place it would be. And that's my main interest. I'm not so much, unification doesn't have to happen as far as I'm concerned. Just open the border. If you open the border, I mean, the Korean people have been there for 2,000 years. The situation will take care of itself, and there'll be great prosperity.
So, as you pointed out clearly, that you're not endorsing any candidate in this race as somebody who doesn't necessarily have a vote in the Korean presidential election, but as far as the economy is concerned here in Korea, what you are emphasizing is that whoever becomes the president of Korea, the biggest way they can really give a boost to the economy to really grow GDP would be to opening the border with North Korea. And you feel that is the biggest X factor.
That would be very exciting. Now, Russia's for this, China's for it, North Korea's for it, Japan is against it because Japan knows they cannot compete with an open Korea, but there's nothing they can do it. I mean, they're trying to stop it, but they cannot stop it. So nobody's against it, but most people are for it. So if it happens,
right,
nature will take its course, and it'll be a very exciting place.
You didn't mention the one country, the biggest influence in terms of a nation that could prevent it, which would be your home country, the United States, though.
The United States, it's the United States Army is against it because they want to stay in Korea. It's the only place that the Army can keep troops on the Chinese border and the Russian border. So they want to keep troops there. They've been there for 70 years or something. As far as I'm concerned, if I were Korea, I'd say, listen, guys, we've been here a few thousand years. We can take care of ourselves. Why don't you go on home? We've made mistakes in the past. We've had success in the past. But it's our country. We don't need to be occupied by a foreign army. Go home and let us take care of it. But I'm not Korean. I cannot tell the American army to leave. Mr. Trump could not tell the American army to leave. Mr. Biden cannot tell the American army. The army is very powerful.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because one of the kind of components to Korea's success has often been attributed to that strong security alliance with the United States. And so, and not to get into ideological arguments about the presence of U.S. troops here in South Korea, as you say, very strategically important for the United States. But if there are questions in the long term, for the prosperity of the country itself, it kind of seems like there is going to be a little bit of a decision point to be made within the next generation as to how to deal with that. As you well know, Mr. Rogers, there's always been this delicate sort of balancing act for South Korea because of its economic dependence on China coinciding with its security relationship with the United States, right?
Yes, well, this is 2022. This is not 1952. This is 2022, not even 1962 or 72 or 82. The world has changed a lot. As far as I can see, both Koreas would like to have peace. Do you know how much money you're spending on defense? Do you know how much money North Korea is spending on defense? There's staggering amounts of money. And if that money could be spent on something else, there's bound to be prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. I mean, that's amazing how, and every Korean alive today has spent his or her whole life worried about getting killed. Why don't you stop worrying about that and worrying about having a big party?
Right. And I think that is really not just the economic benefits, but there are people who have been yearning for, advocating for a greater engagement, reconciliation, not just with the trade ties, but also just with this idea that this one people have been separated now for well over half a century. And perhaps it is time to have a little bit of a paradigm shift in the way we approach that situation. Aside from the North Korean issue, as far as regardless of who becomes president here in South Korea, what do you think are some of the interesting sort of economic factors that come into play for South Korea, whether it's, green growth or investments in cryptocurrencies, development of new technologies, key export items like semiconductors, and all of that. How do you foresee it on a more, micro level for South Korea?
Well, Korea has never been on the world tourism map for many, many reasons historically. But if you open up, millions of people will be curious and will want to see what Korea is all about. The smart ones, the adventurous ones, will come to the peninsula and they will find natural sites, man-made sites, good food, beaches, mountains, all sorts of things. And so there'll be a big tourism boom on the Korean Peninsula, which it has never happened. I mean, of course, you have a few tourists, but you don't have when people think of going up to Asia even, they don't think of Korea. They think of Bali. They think of China. They think of many other places. So that will change dramatically. There'll be a transportation boom because there used to be railroads on the East Coast and the West Coast. Those railroads can be and are being rebuilt. So it'll be a huge transportation boom. Agriculture will boom. I mean, I've been to North Korea a couple of times. In North Korea, they don't have anything. I mean, they're still cutting grass by hand. It's amazing how backward they have been, how the economy was ruined by the Kims and the communists. So there'll be all sorts of dramatic changes taking place in many fields.
When you look at the situation here in South Korea, and you have graciously accepted this invitation by the Lee Jae-myung campaign to have a discussion on this, what do you think again, not your own endorsement or whatever your thoughts are on the Korean political scene, but what do you think that Korean voters should be looking out for when they make their assessment on who they should vote for president, whether it is Lee Jae-myung or the opposition candidate Yoon Suk-yeol?
I want to repeat, I'm not Korean. I cannot tell people how to vote, but I would certainly look for prosperity to be a very major thing. Korea's had a declining birth rate for a long time. It's very, very low now. That one reason for that is the uncertainty and the lack of great prosperity. I would look for a new country, a new century, a new world for Korea, which you could have. And how do we get that? That would be the thing that I would be most worried about. But I'll repeat, Mr. Shen, I am not Korean. I'm just telling you what I would do. But it could be unbelievably exciting. You know, you're not having babies in South Korea, and that's partly because of the uncertainty and the lack of great prosperity. That could all change very dramatically, very quickly.
Yeah, great advice. And as always, Mr. Rogers, we appreciate your time. I believe your teleconference is going to be streamed live on YouTube and other platforms. What time are you set to meet with Lee Jae-myung?
I think it's 12 o'clock Singapore time. Hang on, let me just double check. Let's see. Yes, it is. Our meeting is 12.
Okay.
It's 1 o'clock Singapore. It's 1 o'clock Singapore time, which I guess is 2 o'clock.
Right.
Time.
So 2 p.m., I think a lot of our listeners and really millions around the country will be watching you and Lee Jae-myung have this important discussion. We thank you very much for joining us, spending your precious time to give us a bit of a preview. And hopefully we can have you back again soon, Mr. Rogers.
Well, you know, I'm very keen on your station and network, so sure, of course, I'd be happy to do it again. But I'll be happy to talk to other candidates in Korea, too. Don't think I only have one choice.
Sure.
I want the whole peninsula to do well.
And hopefully those other candidates will reach out to you and have that conversation should time permit. Mr. Rogers, thank you once again. Talk again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
TBS EFM.